Now, the next thing I want to talk about is an important topic because we get a lot of context from this. It's the H-4. So just the background, when a specialized worker is approved, it's an H-1B visa to come and work in the United States. These are people usually with degrees or a lot of work experience who come in certain specialized knowledge jobs. Now, their spouse and kids could also get a companion visa. It's called the H-4. I'm not sure why they skip from H-1B being the primary, and then all the way to H-4 for the secondary. There is a thing called the H-2 visa and H-3. Those are certain kind of training and temporary visas. That's probably why that happened. But the dependents are H-4s. And so they could, come to the United States. But there's a lot of back and forth. There are lawsuits about, different aspects of this visa. Could you just talk about some notes you wanted to mention about the H-4 category, Anya?
Yes, sure. Before I talk about H-4s, I just want everyone to watch our previous videos where we were talking about the H-1B preparation process. We also spoke about the H-1B cap gap. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people find this information interesting. So please stop now and watch this video before that one, because that's it has to important.
Be. There's one transition from F1 to H-1B, so you're pre-planning how that's going to go and STEM and all that kind of stuff. We did thorough videos, so definitely check that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Right. So going back to H-4. So what is H-4? H-4 is a temporary visa that is issued for dependents of H-1B visa holders, H-2A, H-2B, and H-3. So that's why the answer to your question, why it's not H-2 or something, well, that's what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And first thing, what's important for someone to qualify for this visa, it has to be either spouse, and again, legal marriage is required. Going back to what we just talked about, it has to be valid in the jurisdiction where it was entered into. Mm-hmm. So again, online marriages and all these things, they might work again if there was a consummation and
exactly.
What we just talked about. So it has to be valid marriage, and for kids can also qualify for H-4 visa as long as they are under 21 years of age. Okay. And H-4 status is valid as long as the H-1B visa holder maintains his or her H-1B status. And as you may know, initial H-1B status can be valid for 6 years, right? And 3 years increments. And after that, it can be also extended almost indefinitely under certain provisions. For example, if H-1B visa holder have I-140 petition approved, right, or under AC-21, which is the, I forgot the abbreviation. I'm so bad with abbreviations, sorry guys. So it's American Competitiveness Act in 21st century, something like that. Yeah. Right? So under these provisions, H-1B visa holder can get extensions of their status as well.
And H-4 along with that. Yeah.
H-4s, they are not counted towards the H-1B visa cap. Mm-hmm. So just the primary H-1B visa holder counted towards the cap. Mm-hmm. And the number one thing probably that we encounter in our practice is that H-1B visa holders, they are not authorized to work incident to status, unlike, for example, spouses of E-visa holders, specifically E-2s, right? Or L-2s, which are spouses of L-1 visa holders. They both are authorized to work incident to status. And recently there has been this huge litigation, and I think in fall of 2021, USCIS finally recognized that these visa categories are authorized to work incident to status, and they don't need to get their EAD. But it's only for E and Ls, but not for H-4s. H-4s still have to file for employment authorization document, and not all H-4s qualify for that. Okay.
And the annoying thing about that whole process is it was taking a long time. That's what these lawsuits kind of are presenting and saying, why is it taking a year to get the employment authorization approved in these kind of cases? Or even if someone came to the United States, got an H-1B change of status, and H-4 for the spouse at H-4 might take a year for the change of status to go through. So they're stuck in this limbo. It was really debilitating. And so there's a lot of lawsuits and some success that's happened. But I just want to mention that quickly. Go ahead, Anya.
Yeah, it's I mean, little by little,
Yeah.
USA is getting towards to alleviating this H-4 status, because there are a lot of people, a lot of spouses here in the United States, and they cannot work. They cannot work, and most of them, they have college degrees, and it's so many people that are just not participating in U.S. economy directly, and it just sad situation
Yeah.
to me. Yeah, so going back to work authorization for H-4 visa holders, not everyone qualifies. Um, um, only those whose H-1B spouses visa status were extended under AC-21, or if they have I-140 petition approved, but they cannot file for green card because there is no visa available right now. So spouses of this H-1B visa holders category, they can apply for employment authorization document. Okay, and what's important here to note is that H-4s, they're not restricted by the employer, so they can work anywhere as long as they have the valid EAD card.
Yeah.
They cannot start working unless and until they get the actual card. Okay, this is good to know too. Um, so recently there has been like a big change to that. Previously, H-4 visa holders, they were not able to get automatic 180-day extension for their employment authorization documents. But again, because of this litigation, recent litigation, now they are. But certain conditions have to be met too for them to qualify. First is that they have to file while their previous EAD card is still valid. Okay, and the second one is that they have an expired form I-94. So if those both conditions are met, automatic extension will work in this situation.
A quick note, because of all the delays that have been happening, one was the requirement that President Trump's administration started, that everyone changing status or extending status needs to do a biometrics appointment, a fingerprinting appointment. That wasn't a requirement. They did temporarily suspend that because of how much delays were happening. So for effective May 17, 2021 through May 17, 2023, so for a 2-year period, if you are doing an extension of stay or change of status to an H-4, the biometrics is not required for now. Hopefully that continues because it's such a delay filling kind of thing. But we're good on that for now if you're watching it during that period.
Yeah, thank you, John. I'm glad that you mentioned that. This is very important too, because we've seen when clients come to us, they file, for example, or their other attorney of the employer files, right? And USCIS were sending back this change of status applications because of biometrics, because they included the biometrics.
Yeah, the fee and everything. Yeah, that's so going to be confusing. You have to be really careful. Now, USCIS does have a webpage on USCIS.gov that calculates what the fees you're supposed to submit are. So be very careful, because this is really confusing when you submit a fee, when you don't. If it's a minor child that doesn't, it does, all this kind of stuff. And they change it so frequently. It's like a minefield of issues that could happen.
Right. So a couple more important notes about H-4 employment authorization. So only spouses qualify for employment authorization, not the kids, not children, unfortunately. But both children and spouses, they can study in the United States. And there's no need to file for change of status to F1. It might be helpful in some situations because, for example, if you want to do OPT or CPT, all right, you need to change the status to F1 first before getting this.
Yeah, what you said, so OBCP is work authorization incident to being a student and related to being a student. But let's say you have a spouse with H-1B and the H-4 wants to study. It's a good backup to have the H-4 being an F1 student, just in case the H-1B loses their job or the company shuts down. They could then transfer and become an F2 dependent spouse of a student visa holder. So it's a good backup to have that's ready to go in case you feel like something's not, we're working smoothly in the place of the H-1B employment. Now, as an F2 spouse, you can't work per se, but it's better than all of a sudden be out of status and have to work fast to try to figure it all out.
Right, and it might give you a necessary time to find a new employer, for example. And again, if you already had an H-1B visa or H-1B status, right, you're not counted towards the cap, right, in certain circumstances, which is one of this, right? So it might be just a good thing to consider if you find yourself in this situation. Yes, so for very important thing too, if you are filing to change your status to H-4 in the United States, it's very important, because a lot of people forget to do it, and a lot of attorneys for employers forget to do it for their because it's different issue of dual representation and other things. I'm not gonna go into that, but the problem with that is that employer files H-1B petition for the primary worker, right, and they forget to file change of status separate applications for the family. Exactly. And separate application required for to change status to H-4. It's form I-539. And if it's not filed, it's a huge problem. We've seen situations when, for example, it's called Nunc-pro-tunc extension were granted when they granted it after the fact, but you really don't want to do that.
Yeah, so make sure to correct an error that happened, and it's discretionary, so we want to rely on that. And kind of on that note, when the spouse does apply for change of status on the I-539, the children could come under that. They have some separate stuff they have to submit. But sometimes I've seen employers tell the client each family member has to file their own I-539, which results in a lot of extra filing fees that aren't needed.
Right. One more thing, last thing that I want to mention too, that H-1B petitions, they qualify for premium processing, unlike I-539 petitions for family members to change their status to H-1B, to H-4. And what we see is that the original H-1B, initial H-1B petition gets approved within like 15 calendar days, for example, if it's premium processing, right? And if the option is available. And H-4 change of status can be dragging for like months.
Now, there might be people who done this and they had differently. Up until about a year and a half ago, the premium processing service centers, as a matter of, I guess, discretion, had a policy of adjudicating both at the same time, and even adjudicating the work permit for the H-4, for example, if needed. This is primarily L2 context that we would do it in, and they would approve it all at the same time. But all of a sudden, overnight, without telling us, they made a switch, seeing like, change of status cases where the spouse just, nothing's happening. And we email them and they say, oh, we don't do that anymore. Just goes regular processing. So they do everything they can to make life difficult. They're trying to fix this stuff up. Hopefully they will, but be prepared for this kind of inconsistency that kind of doesn't make sense, especially because it's a family unit. But this is how it is right now.
Right. And one last thing is that H-4 visa holders, they can change their status to other visa categories. For example, as we just spoke about, to F1, sometimes even to B2, if the applicant qualifies for that. What we see too, spouses can switch between H-1B and H-4 when, for example, one spouse reaches the six-year limit, and there is no I-140, there is no AC-21 provision that can work for them, and this is another option to kind of extend your stay in the United States when former H-4 spouse becomes primary H-1B visa holder, right, and vice versa, because this time that spouse spends in H-4 classification in the United States does not count towards the H-1B time limit.
Well, great. Thank you so much. There's a lot of information there, but H-4, we get the calls and all these different questions. There's even more stuff than this because it's a decision to make for your family, your kids, and everything. How are you going to handle it, and sometimes you make a change on the spot. So hopefully this video will give you some idea of the options available. If you're interested in learning more, email us at info@jqqlaw.com and briefly describe the immigration issue that you have so we can better understand if it's the kind of case we can help you with, or at least have a basic initial consultation about. Either Anya and I will be there to help you out. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to get more videos like this. Thank you for watching this educational program. To get the latest videos, click the subscribe button and the notification bell icon. Also, help us help the immigrant community by liking this video and sharing it with your family and friends. You can also find us on other social media sites like Instagram,
Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Twitter, where you find the latest updates on immigration news, policy changes, and tips. Be safe and God bless. See you soon.